What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today's video, we're going to be back to work on the micro go-kart out of a mini bike frame. So if you haven't really seen the mini series I did on actually building this thing, I think we got 2 videos on this thing so far. Suggest you go check it out to actually get kind of an idea of where we're at on this thing and kind of catch you up to date on kind of the whole plans with this thing. But in the last video, we kind of got the steering starter knocked out. We started getting a whole new steering stem all welded up in there, and actually got 1 spindle welded up. So we got 1 wheel on there so far, got a little bit of steering going. So that was all we ended up knocking out in last video. So today's video, I actually want to get the whole steering knocked out on this thing. I would like to kind of cross my fingers. I'm gonna try to work. So we didn't end up having time knocking out this other side because I actually forgot to buy this 1 bolt. I bought the one that was wrong size. So we still need to finish up this whole spindle and all that, and actually extend it out like this other side so we can have the 18-inch, I think 18 or 20-inch width span that we're trying to looking for. And then once we actually get this other spindle on, we can start working on the steering shaft, since I already have that in place. We got the new steering stem welded in, and I ended up 3D printing a little bushing up on the top here so the steering shaft can kind of slip right down. And then for the bottom here, we got pillow ball bearing, I think those are what they're called. That's actually going to slip right on the bottom of this tube there. We'll weld some tabs on the bottom of the frame so this can actually bolt on there. Have the steering shaft go all the way through to the bottom and kind of shoot the steering back. Then I got these little tie rods right over there that we'll actually put kind of in line right in kind of this general area. But we'll kind of have to figure that out once we actually get the steering shaft in, and then we can start welding the tabs up onto the spindles and all that and figure all that out. So I'm gonna actually knock out this other spindle real quick so we can just get that all out of the way real quick. If you want to see how I did it, you can check out last video. But I'm gonna get that all knocked out, get that tacked in place, and then we can actually start working on the steering shaft. Hopefully get that knocked out, and then we can actually hopefully see some steering on this thing. So it's actually the next day. Last night I ended up getting to work on the micro go-kart. I actually got this whole other side spindle pretty much finished up on the spindle side, and then got it tacked onto the frame and got all the caster and camber all in line with the other side. So everything's all good to go there. Got it all tacked into place. And then after that, I was just eating dinner, looking on Facebook Marketplace, and I kind of came across a deal. So I had to run out and go snag it. So I'm gonna give you guys a little quick glimpse of it, because we're gonna probably work on it on Monday's video coming up, just because I want to try to work on it, see if I can actually get it running. So it's gonna be kind of hard to hide in the background. So I'm just gonna give you guys a quick little glimpse of it while we're kind of working on this thing. So that is coming up on Monday's video, so be prepared for that. It's another project. Got it for a good deal, so can't complain on me, but I really want to get this micro go-kart finished up. I at least want to get the steering all done up in today's video. So now that we got the spindles all tacked into place, I actually want to get these all completely welded up, just so we don't have any issues with these things tweaking or moving in any sort of way. And then once we get those all welded up, I actually want to start throwing in a steering shaft in here, chop it down a little bit, so you kind of get an idea of how long it's going to need to be. I don't think we're going to really stick it up too high out of here, but it's definitely going to need to come down a few inches on the bottom. And then I also want to get this pillow ball bearing actually tacked into place with its own little bracket, and maybe some bolts and studs to actually bolt this thing on, and just kind of get the steering all finished up. Once we actually get the steering shaft in place, we can actually get the tie rods in. I have them out of the baggie, just kind of eyeing them up, seeing how they're going to go. So probably go somewhere in this general area, and we'll have a tab coming off the steering shaft shooting down, and then we'll have some tabs coming up the spindles coming out, connect the tie rods on there. We got 1 for each side, so pretty straightforward for the most part. So let's get to work on that. I'm actually gonna weld this all up real quick, and then we can start working on the steering shaft itself, getting that all finished up. So you guys just saw I got this front end pretty much all welded up. I think I got like 75% of it all welded up. Last thing that really got to weld is the bottom of these tubes there. But other than that, everything is pretty much good to go, solid and in its place. And then I ended up even bolting up the wheels as well. I ended up cutting some little 1/2 inch little spacers to go inside these little spindles here, just to kind of keep the wheel off the spindle itself, since we still need to grind this down a little bit and make some clearance. But we're all good to go. They're all bolted up, so now we got an idea of how it's actually sitting, and it's actually sitting on its own weight in the front. So this thing is definitely a little low, but it is what it is. It's kind of just how I built it at this point. But now we can start figuring out the steering. So I ended up actually chopping down the steering shaft. It's kind of hard to see, but got the steering shaft running all the way down here, and I even have the little bearing on there. And I kind of just got it propped up on a couple little things, just kind of get it up in its place, and you can see where the bearing's gonna kind of lie. So now I just gotta whip up a little plate for this bearing to actually bolt up onto. So I got some 3/8 little plate here that I'm gonna make a little bracket out of and actually have it weld to these bars here, and then we'll kind of brace it up later on. I think I'm gonna have a couple studs come out of it so the bearing can actually kind of slip onto the studs and have a good bolt spot for it and be good to go there. But other than that, I'm gonna start working on that, maybe get that all tacked up tonight, and we'll see how far along we can get the steering going. What's going on, guys? So it's actually the next day again. Sorry if my voice is a little shoddy, I just kind of woke up like this. But last night I was talking about actually cutting up a little plate for the bearing to actually bolt onto so we can weld onto the frame here, and I did end up knocking that out. I got the plate chopped out and got some bolts running through it, and we've just been sitting here thinking about it, looking at this whole thing. And the more I thought about it, if I want to actually take this steering shaft out or even service this bearing, replace the bearing or whatever, me running studs through this plate that would be welded onto this plate here, it would be kind of impossible to kind of slip that bearing out, because it would just kind of hit the pole there without slipping out the whole steering shaft. And the way I'm going to do the steering shaft, it's going to be a little tricky to kind of slip it right out. So kind of thinking ahead of myself, so I'm going to end up actually welding some bolts on the back side of here, so then we can actually some nuts on the back side of here, so we can run bolts through the bearing and through the plate that'll actually be welded up onto the frame here, if I can get it up there. So it'll kind of just sit just like that, and then we'll brace up the sides and all that. And then once it's actually tacked into place, we can got a good idea of where steering shaft's actually gonna be. So then we can actually start welding our little tabs off the spindles here on each side, and then actually a tab off the steering shaft itself coming down to our little tie rods that can bolt right up. And hopefully actually see some steering by the end of today, because today is the last day I can work on this thing. It is Thursday and this video goes out tomorrow. So gotta get some work knocked out. So let's get to work on it. I'll catch up with you guys here in a little bit once I knock out this little plate, getting this all tacked up, and then we can start working on the spindles and getting the tie rods all in there. So I've been working away on getting the steering all finished up. So I ended up actually welding up the nuts on the back side of this plate to hold the bearing on there, and then I even welded the plate onto the frame here. So now the bearing is in its final point. You can kind of see how I have it sitting right inside this pipe right there, so it sits nice and perfect. So now we got the steering shaft right in place, and it spins nice and freely, no binding up or anything. So now we have an idea where this is laying. So now we guys should start figuring out our tabs for the tie rods. I even started welding one up real quick on this right side here, and got the tie rod kind of semi-bolted in there, just kind of get an idea of where it's going to kind of lie with the steering shaft there. So after looking at that, I think I can use this piece of metal here, thinking about just kind of welding that on the bottom there, drilling one single hole on the bottom, so I can bolt both tie rods through the same hole and have equal turn radius on each side. So shouldn't have to worry about one side having a little bit more angle than the other, and kind of just fix the alignment with the tie rods. Nothing too crazy. I might need to order longer tie rods the more I'm looking at it, just because everything ended up being just an inch wider than I wanted to, but it's all right. So other than that, let's just try to get the tab welded up on the steering shaft. And I also want to get the other spindle all knocked out. I got the tab already cut up for the tie rod side, so we'll get that all welded up and hopefully have some steering for this thing, and finally have the tie rods all bolted up and all that. Alrighty guys, I got all the steering done and finished up, and just as I finished it, I realized I fucked up 100% on all of this. So here, I'll show you. So I got my little tabs on the little spindles here coming out. I got my tab coming off the steering shaft, shooting down. Got both tie rods bolted together in the same point. Even got this other side all welded up and good to go. And then I was just sitting here with some vice grips on the top, since I don't really have that little half collar I want for the handlebars. I was just turning it, seeing how it all works. And then I realized, say you want to go right, it goes left. If you go left, it goes right. Since I went down with this, it reversed everything, so now everything is backwards on the front here. So I really don't know what to do at this point. Part of me just wants to keep it and kind of make it like an inverted micro go-kart, but it is gonna be really sketchy and probably gonna hurt someone at some point. So I don't know if I want to keep it like that. But I'm like way too deep in this right now where I'm like, I might just keep it at this point, but I don't really know. I'm gonna have to sleep on this for a couple days because I really messed up. And now I gotta fix a few hours worth of work. Not really, it's really just replacing the steering shaft for the most part, so it really isn't too bad, but it's enough work to at least give me another hour or two on top of what I need to, or even having to buy more shafts. So I don't really know. I am so dumbfounded on how I messed it up that hard, where if you go left it goes right, and if you want to go the other way it is just opposite. I don't know how I didn't notice that when I was building this all together. I'm just a retard and had a little too much to drink, so it is what it is. Figure out the hard way, and I figured out the hard way way too deep, so it is what it is. I'm gonna end up cutting this video at this point, so hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Finally finishing up the steering on the micro kart, but it's all inverted now, so I don't really know what to do at this point. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hope you like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more content, and peace out.